Welcome back to Slot Shot Podcast, a hockey podcast brought to you by Star 6 Media. We've reached that time of the year, the Stanley Cup Finals. It's on the horizon, starting here on Saturday. We've got a few things to get through before we get to our full Stanley Cup Final preview. But man, am I excited for this episode. I mean, this is a big one. This is the first of hopefully many in the years to come. But the fact is a lot of hard work has come off to get to here. And the fact is we're excited to deliver this preview. But we got to check in with our co-hosts, as we always do on this show. Alex, how's the world?
The world is good. Today started off cold with a small iced coffee, even though I ordered a large. Starbucks needs to figure it out. I'm not going to say their words. And if I order a large, it better not be the size of like a beer, which is kind of what it was. I think like they gave me the middle ground one, which I think common sense would tell you that's not large. Also, looking at the size of it would tell you it's not large. So it was.
I agree. Next
time, maybe walk in with a pounder and point behind the counter. Give me the one this size.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish they like. I don't. I guess we're talking about them for the fact that
Venti
is, I guess,
in
what
Starbucks?
it's supposed to
20 ounces.
I looked it up after to look up the sizing chart because I'm like, did I really mess this up? Even though I've ordered large forever and never had this happen. But I know this Starbucks is notoriously just not good. I'm not going to call them out. No need to. But
we're positive you didn't say grande as the medium size.
No, I said large. I don't say the words. I say large.
A man needs a code. A man needs a code.
Yeah, no, but typically they have common sense and give me the large-looking one. And if anything, if they have a question, they say, do you want the enormous one, which they now offer, which is like an extra large? And that's a fair question. I get it. Like they're like, do you want the huge one or do you want just the normal large? Never have gotten this. So it's one of those things I didn't want to like ask them to fix it. I was just like, okay, I guess I'll have less caffeine today, which is probably good in the long run, but still shit. I was not happy about it, so... But it was a gorgeous day in Chicago. You know, it's like 80 degrees, a little too hot for me, but I'm not complaining.
Absolutely. Alex debuted for the beer league team last night as well.
Oh, yeah.
Very exciting night there. But Ross, what do you got for us?
I was just thinking about what's up in my world, in my work world. I don't want to get into my work stuff, but I may be in Las Vegas with no plans and a Stanley Cup final game in the building. There's an outside chance I might, if I'm ready to drop 500 bills on a nosebleed, I might go to a game.
Company
I'm
expense
going to be there.
that.
Slot shot in the building.
Holy
company
smokes.
Expense.
I don't think that's going to fly with this company. But holy shit. I just realized that. And literally the last time I was in Las Vegas for this conference, it was also when the Knights were in the final. Very weird. I just realized that just now. But yeah, hey, we're doing great. It's the summertime. It's the Stanley Cup Finals. Like Jack referenced, all the hard work going in, talking about ourselves. Okay, not the players leaving it all on the ice. Talking about us. But no, stoked to be here and stoked to rip this pod for our faithful termites.
Yeah, no, I get it. And love it. Love to have you both in here. I didn't realize you were going to Vegas. Good to know on air. To get a little instant reaction. But hopefully, if we could get Ross in the building for game one of the games, that'd be pretty wild. But let's move into what we kind of covered a little bit last week in the conference final breakdown and kind of assessment of what was going on with the Dallas-Vegas series. At that point, I think it was 3-0, maybe 3-1, with Dallas being able to finally pull one out, and then also finding a little more momentum. Ty Dellandrea, big 2-goal performance from him. First time he's ever scored 2 goals in a game, and it happens in a big Game 5 performance for the Dallas Stars as they're able to fend off the Vegas Golden Knights for one more night, taking that one by a score of 4-2 before finally whimpering, running off to the distance, and finally toasting this playoff run goodbye in a 6-0 defeat in Game 6 as the Vegas Golden Knights cruised to their second Stanley Cup in, 7 years of existence, 4 overall conference finals.
Yeah, they missed the playoffs one year. Every other year they've been in the conference final or the Stanley Cup final.
It is a wild run for a young expansion team that has just immediately found success. But the Vegas Golden Knights, they wrap up the series, taking it 4-2. Who wants to kind of quickly? We're going to quickly recap this Vegas-Dallas series as because we talked a lot about it in last week's pod. But quickly on our 2-game notes, what do we got?
Yeah, I'm ready to. I'm ready to start if we can. Just because again, we want to keep the door open, right? If Dallas found a way to win Game 6, we would have had a Game 7, and there could have been a lot to talk about. Game 6, to me, you saw it all turn early in the game. Wyatt Johnston, who's been very good, but is a very young player. He's 20 years old. And this is something I've seen in the playoffs less and less as the playoffs have eliminated teams. Like, take a drink, my Boston Bruins. But like a lot of teams that have great success in the regular season play this puck possession, smart plays, basically essentially flat puck hockey, right? So Wyatt Johnston, it's a low pressure situation. He's catching a breakout pass. It's like a line change. And he's like a foot from his own blue line. And instead of making some kind of a simple play in the right direction, he goes back to the D, who was the wide open player, right? He was using the ice to just kind of like how we would in beer league, but like that's not Stanley Cup playoff hockey. Misfires or miscommunicates with the defenseman, sends the puck in deep. Here comes Vegas with fresh legs on the forecheck, ends up in the back of their net. And that was the story of Dallas in this series. They were inconsistent for a team that was pretty consistent all postseason and regular season. Felt like they started to kind of lose their legs and started to lose focus and just couldn't get over some of their challenges. My big point was, if they're going to win this in 7, they need Ottinger to steal a game, and they need to do something about Ryan Suter's minutes. Both were a huge problem in Game 6. So it wasn't shocking, but it was sad. And, God, do I have a lot of future bets on Dallas that I'm going to have to pay up on. So not thrilled with all of that. What do you got, Arm?
Yeah, I mean, it just didn't – it was kind of – I know they stole Game 5. And I wouldn't really say stole. They just kind of – they won a game there. They went into Vegas, won, and that was obviously a big win. And I think we're all looking for momentum to carry over, and it just kind of didn't. And what ended up from, like, I think anytime you make the conference finals, it's a good year, especially with a young team. I think there were a few teams that would have been disappointed with the conference finals this year, and I think maybe Vegas was the only one to get there that would have been disappointed with that, It was just a lack of, I don't know. You saw spots where I was excited about Dallas, and some players had good series. It was just not enough, and I know they had good games across the series. It seemed like they were more willing to give up, and obviously that's like a takeaway you get when there's 2 blowout games in such a big stage.
And when you get eliminated 6-0 on home ice, it's
just a bad taste.
It sucks.
They had they had 2 games where they lost by 5 and 6 on home ice.
On home ice,
that can't happen. For anyone to go out of the series being happy, I will say there's some really bright spots on Dallas. And one of my big takeaways from Game 5, and I was watching with Ross, and we had talked last week about the Robo stamp or the Robo nickname for Robertson. Robertson got better and better as the playoffs went on and showed a different style of play, which I think everyone looks for and is concerned about with a guy like that who can coast through the regular season because they're so good. It's not saying he doesn't have effort during the regular season. It's just a different style of play that has to be adjusted come playoff time because everything gets so much tighter. I thought he showed a lot of hope for the future, like a lot of reason to be excited going forward. So I'm not trying to bash on Dallas too much, but it was what we wanted to see in the Western Conference Finals. Sorry.
No, for our devoted listener, Paulie, we feel for you. It was Dallas kind of tugging with their hearts in the Western Conference Finals, laying an egg for the first 3. Well, not laying an egg, but tough results in the first 2 games of the series. Not being able to kind of piece it together. Game 3, come out, things kind of erupt. Jamie Benn did come back in Game 6. Didn't bring much of a boost to the lineup as he had quite hoped, as the quotes had been out there that he was pretty much kind of sitting on the edge of his seats as he had to watch the 2 games from the press box after the questionable decisions as we covered. But the fact is the Dallas Stars ended up it seemed like they wanted to go golfing in their home building a little bit earlier than Vegas as Vegas cruised to the Stanley Cup final. Any final thoughts on the Stars and Vegas Western Conference Final before we move on?
I have one last thing, and this comes from predicting each round and predicting game numbers. I didn't think this was a close series at any point. It went 6 games. I think we underestimate how hard it is to sweep. And I know, especially in the first 2 rounds, really, I was looking at a lot of series, and I was like, 4 or 5, even 6 games. And the reality is that is a blowout if you're going to do that, And I think we saw the alternate where Florida swept in a close series, Like, I don't think Carolina backed down, but it was a sweep. It's just really hard to get it done. 4 straight games in the NHL playoffs is a really, really tough thing to do. So going into next year's playoffs, that's something I'm going to remember, Even a series that can be a blowout might go 6, and a tight series could go 4, but really tough to close these series out quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Final thoughts, Ross?
Yeah, a few more nails to put in the coffin of the Dallas Stars. Ryan Suter's an issue, and his play is not going to get any better as he gets older. His contract's not going to get any better as he gets older. I'm thinking to myself, maybe DeBoer was just thinking, hey, this is what I got. I got to play it, and maybe he'll be better today. Like, maybe that's just the thought process. Maybe the feeling was he didn't want to go anywhere else. Harley and Hanley at that 55-45 on the bottom pairing. I said I liked Harley. Hanley had been pretty quiet. Well, he got loud in a bad way in that last game. So maybe he didn't want to bump up Harley for fear of pairing Suter with Hanley and what that could do. I don't know. Felt like he might have been between a rock and a hard place with the matchup. So big takeaway is that Dallas needs to reimagine their blue line this offseason. They need to just make some hard decisions and maybe trade some good players, right? Maybe Essa Lindell. Maybe he's moving a piece. Maybe even moving away from Harley and trying to sell high on a good playoffs with a young first-round pick guy. I don't know. Maybe they buy out Ryan Suter. That's another note I had.
It's a hefty
Could
price.
Ryan Suter be bought out twice in a span of 3 years? It's really good for the bank account. But
just quickly on the bank account note, they also have 2 guys who had bright spots in the playoffs, but I also think you have to be concerned about with their cap hit going forward. Sagan and Ben were kind of ghosts in this series, and they have top first line talent cap hits right now. I think Dallas is going to look hard at those contracts because I think it's just tough to build a blue line with 2 of those huge contracts playing second, third line minutes, and not contributing at the level that their cap hit suggests. Not saying that they both had very good spots during the playoffs and got Dallas there. Like I'm not trying to hate on those guys, but you expect them every series when they're coming at the $8-9 million cap hit that they are.
I think that's a good point. Jack brought up removing Ben C, which I think is preposterous, but he might be a piece to consider. I don't really know. They need to mix something up there because you look now, they were in the final in the bubble year 2020, right? Now they're back in the conference final, and they've been through some changes already, and they've had some emerging stars, and they've sent some guys out, so that'll be interesting. It's a good point about Sagan and Ben's production in the series. Vegas is really tough, and they play such a good team D. All 5 players, such a deep D core, and just the depth and the consistency, just packing it in and protecting the house. They made it really hard on Dallas.
It's a 4-man front in front of that goal, and it's just
the shot blocking is incredible.
It's impenetrable.
Also, all of their, and I don't like to get too caught in the salary cap, but all of their big money players played like big money players, which I think it's really hard to win without that happening.
Yep, and so my final 2 nails in the coffin is I'm sad for Joe Pavelski. He was probably the guy I was most excited at the concept of lifting the cup once my Bruins were gone. Take a drink. And so for Joe Pavelski, 38 years old, he's still got game, but I think he might be more of a kind of he might be more of a third line secondary scorer in the final chapter here of his career because I think he's going to keep playing.
No, I think that, his production throughout the playoffs, he is a guy that he is such a smart hockey player. He knows he doesn't have the speed, but he is so good about finding himself in the right spots, and if it's tipping shots or if it's just being in the right shooting angles or in the right position for a rebound. Pavelski has kind of translated his game with his age. I think he's done that very well, and that's where I think Pavelski will return. But you're barking up some age numbers there, and it's a good point. The time's clicking on him, and you want Joe to be able to get a cup for his sake and for how successful his career has been without obviously adding that ring. You'd love to see it before kind of a pretty shoe-in to be a Hall of Famer hangs it up.
And then my last note is not just about the futures bet that I lost on him winning Conn Smythe, but I'm done with Jake Ottinger. I'm done with him. He's not an elite goalie. He's
opened up some question marks.
He's a big guy that lets pucks hit him. Like they did, like in the ESPN coverage is so bad, but they did a segment where they were like at Stars practice, and they had some like retired women's hockey player who like obviously she had game, but like she's retired and she's a female hockey player shooting on who's supposed to be one of the best goalies in the world. Mm-hmm. She beat him a few times, and like a lot of it was like him not even like reacting to the shot. It's just him being big and positionally staying in a spot. And I just his deterioration over the course of the playoffs. I tried to ignore it because I thought a lot of it was like it was bad numbers, but there was a lot of breakdowns in front of him when the Stars started to get a little inconsistent. But it's like, dude, you're supposed to be the goalie. Like when the team's inconsistent in front of you, that's when you need to step up and keep them alive. And I mean that's why the Stars ran out of juice.
And I think you bring up a pretty interesting point with Hellebuyck or with Ottinger, but I'm trying to compare him to a guy who's kind of as used as much as someone like Hellebuyck, and Hellebuyck who's been able to be as elite as he has been with the amount of games he's played. You know, I think kind of maybe going and finding Ottinger a potential backup that they can can save Ottinger a little bit. I mean, for as young as he is, it's kind of tough to believe that maybe a little fatigue had to play into what was going on there. I mean, Dallas had some long series.
So, you know, like I think that's a bigger topic overall about goalie tandems and about like the next. I do think, and we'll get into what to watch for in 2024. That's kind of a next segment thing. So maybe I'll just save it for there. But my point is, I think Ottinger's going to command a high salary, and he's going to command like 55, 60 starts a year. I think that's just who his type of player is. He's in his primes, 25, 26 years old. Yeah. He's built like a brick shit house. It's not an athleticism issue. I don't see it. You need to have that killer, and it ain't him.
Well, he's still young. That's the positive notes for Stars.
Bold prediction, he'll never win a Stanley Cup as the starting goalie.
Hey, Tuukka Rask never won a Stanley Cup.
Don't I know it?
Shit happens.
That was my bold prediction. I don't know, when I was in high school, so 12 years ago, that Tuukka was coming off seeing what Tim Thomas
LaVisca at that point, but I kind of like how
going to school outside of Boston with a lot of Bruins fans, everyone hated it because Tuukka was coming off some of his best years, and he was a great goalie.
Yeah.
We don't need to get in the conversation, but same idea. I didn't see the it.
That's it's a take that we'll have to see as Ottinger continues to play.
Like mentality-wise, I see some similarities. And playing style-wise, a little bit, although Tuukka was pretty freaking elite.
He was.
Never a big game goalie, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I get it. And yeah, listeners, you're probably wondering, well, we're a little quiet on Vegas. We're saving it because obviously Vegas is moving on. Vegas is in the Stanley Cup Final, and they'll be playing the Florida Panthers. But first, we're throwing you a little curveball. And I'm going to let Ross introduce and take it away on our next segment for tonight's pod. Rusty?
Thanks, Jack. And, Termites, you're going to hear so much about the Stars and the Knights because they've earned it. They're here. They're the final two teams. They're in the Stanley Cup Final. They're the center of the hockey world for the next 2 weeks, hopefully 2 weeks. So there's going to be exhaustive coverage about them. But we've been through now a pretty unprecedented, and I don't want to say unprecedented because it's always crazy, but one of the crazier playoffs. We've watched, I think, an unprecedented amount in our hockey viewing histories of playoff hockey. So I want us to have a little bit of like postseason awards independent of the Cup Final, because the Cup Final will really crown the true champions. But there have been a lot of guys that have stood out, a lot of guys that have maybe disappointed, and some the playoffs you get to see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games of the same teams and the same players. You can form opinions way, way, way faster than you're able to during the regular season. So I thought we'd maybe go around the horn and talk about breakout players that we witnessed. If we each choose one, right? Pick one. I'll go last. I'll deal with you guys stealing me. Pick a breakout forward. We'll go around the horn. Breakout defenseman. We'll go around the horn. Breakout goalie. We'll go around the horn. Then we'll talk about the biggest disappointment. Obviously, probably not too much spent on the Bruins. We've talked about them a lot. And then what to watch for in 2024. Which guys you think, which teams you think showed you signs of life that might just be a tweak away, like the Knights were last year on the outside of the playoffs, and like the Panthers were, getting shit handled in the second round last year. So starting with breakout forwards, who's ready to go first? I said I'll go last.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. And this is a guy who a little biased here, but also I thought, and had some bad moments too, but I thought proved himself in his first time in the playoffs. And a guy who's been around. I think a lot of people viewed him as a playoff player before he even set foot in the playoffs. And from what I saw a piece that's going to be enticing for a lot of teams this offseason. This is Tyler Bertuzzi. And I know the playoffs as a whole didn't go as how him and the Bruins wanted it. But what you saw was a guy who I think a lot of teams are going to look at as an unrestricted free agent this year. As a guy who can come plug a gap in their lineup. As a guy who can add scoring, but also add some grit. And he's kind of one of those filler pieces where I think people are going to see the success of, and I'm not saying they're the same caliber player, but of like a Sam Bennett and how effective he's been, even if he doesn't have those like lofty regular season point production. But say in the playoffs, this is a guy who can cause problems for other teams and put up points. I'm interested to see where he lands. I think he's going to have a lot of contenders coming after him. I think he's going to have a lot of teams, like most of the league coming after him, really, or at least reaching out, seeing what he's feeling. I thought he was impressive, and I think it's exciting for him. I think now that he has the taste of playoff hockey, I bet he looks to sign with a contending team, and I think he could fit a really good role for one of these.
Comments on Bertuzzi before your pick, Jack.
Yeah, I kind of, I guess as the Homer Hawks fan, I'll make the comparison. I see a little bit of an Andrew Shaw as a rat side of Bertuzzi mixed in with a little bit of a Bickle on a potential cup running.
But with a little more skill. Like he
can
score more.
I get it. But I think he could bring an important role to a cup final team like those two guys did for the Blackhawks back in a few days.
It's a comp. It's a comp we had going on my Bruins threads for Bertuzzi. Again, I'm not saying the two players are equal. I'm saying playing style similar, playoff elevation. He's giving you maybe like 65% of a Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah. Similar vibe.
I don't know if the skill's quite there, but
bringing skill to bouncing puck hockey, finishing around the net, making passes to his teammates, and consistently being a threat to score. I didn't love some of his puck management decisions over the course of the series, but ultimately he was definitely a plus on a very down series for the team. So I love that pick, Arm. I think it's a good one.
I agree. We saw brief as the Bruins take a sip, were eliminated in that first round. Obviously, we would have loved to see a little bit more from Birdie, your boy. No reunion in Detroit, you don't think?
I hope so.
I hope he's back with the Bruins, and I think that there's a decent chance that he is, but we'll cover off season.
Yep.
I don't know
we'll
how
get there.
We'll get there.
He's going to be one of the toughest signings to predict because I think everyone's coming after him.
So I think breakout forward for me is going to be Rope Hintz.
I did it again.
Jesus. He was elite scoring for this Dallas team. I know he's kind of been around for a little bit as he is 26 years old, but he established himself as the pretty much the primary scoring for this Dallas Stars team throughout the playoffs. He's going to be a huge part of this Dallas Stars future, and I loved what I saw from speed, willing to get a little gritty, and kind of a complete performer for this Dallas Stars team. So Hintz was my pick for my breakout forward.
Love it. Great pick. I had a Conn Smythe bet on him. I think if they won it all, he was probably going to get the Conn Smythe. So I'm completely co-signed on Rupe.
Yeah.
It's a name to remember.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that pick. And I think, I know we just talked about Dallas, but him and Robertson showing a little signs of life, Heiskanen having a good playoffs, like it's an exciting core. And Hintz was kind of the first guy who I think was willing to use his speed in a different way than how he did during the regular season. So great pick, yeah. I think everyone who watched the Stars would agree with that pick so far.
Absolutely. Certified stamp from Rusty?
For Rupe? Oh, yeah. He got it this year for sure. And it's ironic to my pick here because what opened my eyes early in the playoffs, it might have even been the end of the regular season, but one of the broadcasters said the coach compared him to a little bit of like an Anze Kopitar, like in his prime, right? Like when Anze was as fleet of foot as anybody in a slower league, as he was a faster player then. And Hintz obviously flies, like he's that next tier speed. Yeah.
Speed.
But what makes Kopitar so great is his all-around 200-foot play.
Correct.
The reason I say that's a good lead-in is my guy's Adrian Kempe. There used to be a lot of nationalist perspectives about this is what a Canadian hockey player looks like. This is what an American hockey player looks like. This is what a Swedish hockey player looks like. This is what a Finnish hockey player looks like. This is what a Russian hockey player looks like. And the fact of the matter is, like the globalization, the training, where guys play before they get to the league, I just don't think it's really very true anymore. There's still a thing about like Russian goal scorers, but you look at USA Hockey and the players that they're turning out, they look more like Swiss players of years past, or even Russian players of years past. The Canadians, they're kind of all over the map. They make up too big of a piece of the pie to paint generalizations. But the Swedes, I think, got oftentimes an unfair reputation as being soft players, and there's nothing soft about Adrian Kempe's game. I loved what I saw out of him, and again, just obviously a brief playoff in the first round, tough matchup with Edmonton, but really loved him. I talked about his playoff stamp, and he's a guy that is officially on Team Rusty now.
Loved the guy. Had him. I know you hate when I bring up fantasy hockey. Loved him on my fantasy hockey team this year. I thought he broke out as kind of the primary scoring of this Kings team, as I make that kind of my theme of this round. But Kempe has shown that he has taken the steps to be a complete player in the NHL, and I look forward to watching him grow as this Kings team looks to kind of come on the horizon.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. He's Swedish. I didn't know that. I thought he was Czech. Interesting. No, sorry, that's my first takeaway, but I love the pick. I think he just kind of seems to have a bigger body than he may be listed. I don't know how big he's listed.
6'2", 201.
Okay, so he is a big body. But I don't think I realized how big he is. And he plays. Yeah, he just got a really good game. A game that you see translating into the playoffs. I'm not sure it was a surprise that he was good, but it was a breakout for sure.
And it's a weird comp because Edmonton made it to the conference final two postseasons ago, right? Not this season, but the prior. And Evander Kane was that big breakout for me because Kane didn't have a lot of playoff experience. He got maybe a taste of it with San Jose, but he was longly in Buffalo and on bad Sharks teams after. I loved what I saw from Kane. So Kane's obviously in the past, whatever. And I just saw some of the same kinds of pieces I like to see from Kempe. Again, different styles of players, and Kempe's a much better skater and does I think a little bit more kind of 200 feet, not as much of a physical wild card, and Nuck Chucker as Evander, but that's my pick. Jack, your defenseman.
My defenseman, Jacob Slavin. I think you've seen him in the. I struggled this one honestly. You had told me.
Wakey, Jakey.
But no, I think when Carolina was clicking, I think he was one of Burns and Slavin, best two defensemen on this Carolina team throughout the playoffs. He's a guy that is reliable. He can move the puck. He can shoot the puck, and I think he's a complete defenseman for Carolina. I know he's been in the league, and been in the playoffs a ton at this point. And Carolina's got their question marks to answer, and I'll be coming back to this one. But no, I think Slavin still is. He was good. He was good. He was really good.
My line on the Slavin pick as a breakout performer wasn't a breakout for him. Like he was who he was, and obviously his playoffs came crashing down when he didn't see Sam Bennett coming. Which I actually heard a recent take that's a good point, which is the freaking goalie's got to be shouting in that situation, right? The Freddie Anderson's got to be screaming, yo, yo, yo.
One coming.
One on, like at the top of his lungs, and it didn't feel like he said it. Anyway, that's my only take on Slavin. I think he's a great player, and I think he could be a complete X factor. He could win a Conn Smythe before his career's done.
Yeah, I kind of had the same takeaway. I don't know. He's kind of in between in my mind because I think he's had performances like this in the past where he's shown he's an absolute dog, but at the same time it feels like he still doesn't get the respect. It feels like he still hasn't gotten the national breakout because I feel like people look at Carolina and they're like, oh, it's a team. There's no actual good players here, which is obviously ridiculous. You have to have good players to be a good team. But I like the pick. I thought he had a very good playoffs. Other than,
getting lit up.
The national reputation doesn't help when you get lit up like that in prime time.
Yeah, that's a tough look for the world of hockey. Yeah. Who you got, Arm?
So I got one who I thought had a fantastic postseason. I think he might get a little too much hate going forward in his career because he kind of fits this. He's just another one of these guys that this team has. So you look for something else on this team, but I'm going Evan Bouchard. I thought he was fantastic. There was a lot of talk about Matthias Ekholm coming into the playoffs. A lot of talk about Darnell Nurse because of the cap hit, and I think a lot of people were skeptical of Darnell Nurse, and rightfully so. But Evan Bouchard was a star in pretty much the whole playoffs. On the power play, he added a dynamic from the point that really you look at the rest of the guys and you're like, oh, they don't need an Evan Bouchard, but you see how much more dangerous it is with that booming shot coming right down the middle.
On a power play that scored more than half the time all postseason.
Yeah, and he was a big reason for that. I mean, he was scoring.
That's probably never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Maybe the way the NHL is going, it will, but I hope that never happens again.
And partially this is a little shame on me for maybe not watching enough of him during the regular season, but he always had this reputation as having a crazy shot. And I think oftentimes with guys like that, that becomes the reputation. You start to think of a more plotty type player who doesn't really have the finesse. Evan Bouchard has finesse, and he can skate and he can move around. I thought his defensive game was solid. It wasn't lockdown, but it was plenty to make up for what he was bringing on the offensive side. So I was really excited what he showed there. Again, Edmonton doesn't seem to need that top end scoring, but it doesn't hurt to have Evan Bouchard on your roster. And going into next season, I think when you look at the vibe on him now as potentially one of these elite scoring defensemen, I think we could see him maybe take a bigger role. Because I remember in the regular season, it was a storyline that essentially all the other stars on Edmonton were like, dude, you need to fucking rip the puck on the power play. And I think he was being a bit passive, which makes sense when you have McDavid and Draisaitl and all these guys on that power play. But I look for him to elevate and kind of step into maybe that number one defense role for Edmonton, which could, that could be a storyline come next season.
Oh, when you're paying a guy, 9.5?
9.25 for Nurse.
Oof, it's a painful
Probably
pill
the
to
worst
swallow.
contract in the league.
But no, I think in terms of a shot, I from what we saw in the 2 rounds that Edmonton was alive for, I think he was the best defenseman from the point in terms of getting a shot on net that was low, kind of found its way through traffic. He had his flutters, he had his wrist shots, and it was impressive, I think. And then you kind of saw what the minutes Woodcroft was piling on with Bouchard, and yes, they were in most losing efforts, but the fact is they trusted the young 23-year-old to be out there and play almost nearly, if not more, 30-plus minutes a night on some overtime occasions. So I think this is a good breakout defenseman, maybe unlike mine, as Ross thinks, but no, I think Bouchard has taken the steps to grow, as there's been some question marks surrounding kind of his progression as a NHL defenseman, but you kind of love to see that he is taking the right direction, at least in the big moments, and if that can carry on to next year, I think it's a young defenseman to keep an eye out for.
So qualitatively, Jack, I need to disagree, because I think what made Bouchard so sick on the point for that team, it wasn't fluttering pucks. It wasn't the Brent Burns doing a head fake and firing a puck through traffic that hits 2 toes and a butt and ends up in the back of the net. It was him seeing a lane, shooting through traffic, and going bar down with no tip-ins.
There was snipes.
He would absolutely rip.
But he also
twine.
had some just right above.
There
the
were
pads.
some just muck 'em, but he also had some backdoor on the ice passes that Hyman jacked in, that Draisaitl one-teed. But I just qualitatively a little bit different. But I think that's a great pick. The way you led in, I thought you were going to say my guy. Which is funny because you love the big league tease, but my breakout defenseman's Morgan Rielly.
Yeah, there's another one I was thinking of.
And think of Morgan Rielly, right? He's been in a tough spot in Toronto for a bit with these great teams that have never gotten out of the first round, and he's been part of the problem historically, going all the way back, right? He's one of the longest tenured Leafs, if not the. And I thought he was a true leader this postseason. He contributed on the defensive front, doing those shots that just chuck it into the mixer shots that were huge. And I thought defensively he stayed out of trouble and was effective, playing a lot of minutes with some guys on that defensive roster that really struggled, the Liljegren's and the amount of minutes that Luke Schenn was playing, which I think he did well. But I thought that Rielly was a stud, and I've previously been on record saying
total 180. Total 180.
Totally,
it's wild.
I've been on record saying he's not a number one defenseman, and I think he's now he's won me over as such.
Oh, interesting. It's a total 180 from what if you true you true termites out there that listen. Rusty was not a fan of Morgan Riley, and the fact that he's picking a Leaf is even bigger. But no, I think Riley was solid throughout. Definitely the best performer on the Maple Leafs blue line, and a guy that kind of needed this playoffs, as so did the Leafs by getting out of the first round. But he finally gained, I think, respect that he was kind of lacking in terms of what the media had gained around his repertoire.
Yeah,
right.
I thought it was good. The other thing I liked, he had a good flutter puck game.
Yep.
Definitely that OT winner was kind of the epitome of it, but I think it was throughout. He was playing a game that he seemed to adapt to the playoffs when a lot of his teammates didn't seem to. I also liked, I thought, a good leadership moment for him. I may not agree with it, but after they were eliminated, he was essentially like, look, I want to run it back with these guys. I think we have what it takes, and I think that may not be the best. That's not something I would want.
What do you do? Throw your teammates under the bus and say, yeah, we got to make a lot of changes and build around me?
But in Toronto, you're getting questioned that. And some guys will look and say, I don't know, that's not my job. And he was vocal about it. And I think that mentality of, we could do this, I think maybe some of the rest of the team could have used.
I'm a talk is cheap guy, but I get it.
No, you guys covered what he did on the ice. And I think it was a good moment for a Toronto team that, I don't love the vocal leadership from.
Oh
my God, we're gonna have a lot of fun talking Toronto offseason.
Yes, and we will cover all this in post offseason pods, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Breakout goalie, Jack. Who you got, buddy?
The Carolina Hurricanes goalie situation. Because the fact is, I don't think you can rely on Frederik Andersen, especially when your defensemen are getting blown up. But the fact is, he wasn't reliable. Antti Raantala struggled to stay healthy throughout the year.
So this is the breakout performer section.
Sorry.
Do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, come back.
All right, I got a goalie ready to go. What about you, Arm?
I do too. Yeah.
I jumped the horn.
It's funny. Freddie Anderson was one of my potential picks. I'm not gonna lie.
Do you want me to go?
Go ahead. All
right. Igor Shesterkin.
Yeah.
He had a shaky playoffs. Last year after the crazy regular season that he had and the expectation that he was going to be absolutely the man. And he showed some. I think everything got up to be a little too big. I think he tried to be too much in those moments last year. And I saw the team this year. The play in front of him struggled. I think there was that one moment where he's yelling at the bench, and we talked about the mouthy goalie. That's not my favorite thing, but the way that he was out playing pucks and trying to kickstart zone breakouts and most importantly, doing his job stopping pucks. When you're doing all that other stuff and you're not stopping the puck, shut up, dude. Stop the puck and get out of the way. But he showed commitment and a mental toughness and readiness to shoulder a complete all-around role as a difference maker in net, and I really liked what I saw from Shesterkin. So he gets my breakout goalie of the playoff of our dearly departed playoff teams.
Yep. All right, second breakout I've dropped the ball on, but I kind of disagree with you on this one. Yes, he was a big leader for this Rangers team, but I think the saves that we had seen in the year prior and in that crazy run he had in the postseason. He wasn't making those saves, and they're kind of unbelievable saves to make. But you did. I get it. I understand it. He's still probably the most elite goalie in the NHL, taking that from Vasilevsky. But I don't know. I thought there were some performances that were a little shaky from Shesterkin. So I get it. I find my flaws with it, but I understand it. Alex?
Yeah, I think most goalies will have some shaky performances in the playoffs, especially when you play. Well, I guess it was only 7 games for him, so. Maybe he should have been a little bit more on. But what I liked I feel like in the past he's been a little bit more flashy at times. It seemed like he was looking like who I think is the poster boy of this right now is Hellebuck, where he'll sit, let his body do the work, but then he'll flash a glove. He'll make the flair only when it's needed. But it seems like he's just in position playing sound hockey, and then when you need a little more, he can give it to you. Whereas some goalies seem to be kind of flailing around, and sometimes it works, But I think there's a lot to be said, especially as a big body, of just holding your ground and then making that little twitch.
And then in fairness, this is a little bit of a trap topic. It's hard to pick a breakout goalie of all the teams that got eliminated because most teams that don't make it to the Stanley Cup final, you're not thinking about how great your goalie was.
Totally, yeah.
So a little bit of a trap question.
Yeah.
I don't know if my memory could be a little shaky on that, but I do remember Shesterkin being strong in that New Jersey series, and I felt like every game that New Jersey won was not because of his play.
Yep.
Yeah, I get that. Alex, why don't you go? And then I've come up with one, but I'll let you go next.
All right, yeah. So this is I'm honestly surprised he hasn't been taken yet because I think he is like the true definition of a breakout. Akira Schmid steps out of nowhere and kind of just steals games. And yeah, it wasn't that many games. He didn't start the playoffs in that, but he won them that series against New York.
Yep.
And he played well against Carolina. And he's 23. It's going to be a question. I don't know what his reputation and what his pedigree is, and whether they're comfortable going in with him in a full year or whether he just got hot. I really don't know. But in terms of stepping in from an absolute nobody to going into one of the national series, right? Like that Rangers-Devils series was one of the most watched series, I'd assume. And he was great. He was just excellent. And he continued that play against Carolina. They just got beat. But I don't know. It was a breakout of the truest form. I did not know who he was before the playoffs, and he played great.
Completely saved the Devils season. Vanacek was the go-to guy all throughout the year for the Devils. He was a nightmare coming into that Rangers series, and Schmid really did steal it for the Devils. And the fact is, this is a guy that I think won best goaltender in juniors, won best goalie in the AHL, and has done a lot of winning, and I think will do some potential winning with this young, exciting New Jersey core that seems to be coming.
All right. Biggest disappointment.
Oh, I'm going to go. I'm going to give you my goalie.
He's got the goalie.
Yeah, and the fact is it's a little bit of a, shorter situation than Shesterkin, but Philip Gustafsson in Minnesota finally won the starting role for Bill Guerin. He kind of solved the question of whether or not do they need to bring back Marc-Andre Fleury. No, I think Fleury's on the outs, and the fact is the Wild goalie room is young with Jesper. I'll find the last name, but the fact is Gustafsson, a guy who had the second best save percentage in the regular season for the NHL, a guy that kind of had some weird experiences with Evansson playing Fleury on some nights and then going back and forth. Gustafsson ended up playing starting five of the games, but it kind of hung out to dry with some questionable performances from Minnesota. I don't know, but I liked Gustafsson. I think he's the future in Minnesota with a young core, which I will try and find. Jesper Wallstedt, who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
The young Swedish goalie that I think played in the States this year. But the future's bright in the goaltending world for Minnesota.
Yeah, so I love the pick. I thought Gustafsson was great. I did not. We talked about Fleury game 2, and there was that question of, are they just giving up Fleury? Coming off a 2 OT game, I think was game 1.
Winning.
Huh?
Winning the game.
I know they won.
Coming
I
off
don't
a
think it was a
2-0
question.
win. Yep.
I think, but and I think Ross brought this theory up, is let Fleury eat one here.
We already stole our game on the road. If we leave here 1-1, we're fine. Let's throw in Fleury. Maybe he does. Maybe catches lightning in a bottle. And if he doesn't, Gustafsson's fresh for game 3 when we're ready to.
Yeah, I think Gustafsson was the starter anyways.
A little overthinking, maybe.
Yeah, I think a little. I didn't like it because you have a hot goalie, ride him unless he is physically drained and literally cannot play. But I don't imagine that was the case.
Final 2 weeks of the regular season, I understand that theory, but in the playoffs,
no,
I don't get it. I don't get it.
But there's no reason to bench a guy who gives up 1 goal in 5 periods.
Playoffs.
But I like Gustafsson. I thought it was a good pick, and Jesper Wallstedt is the wonder kid goalie of the league right now. So he's coming. I don't know what his timetable is. Goalies, it's kind of a tough timetable to know, but he's coming. But I think for now, it's kind of a good thing. They're not going to have to feel the need to rush him. If you're a prospect watcher like me, you have Gustafsson.
I say you're a prospect guy, so good to hear.
I know, but it's a nice break-in, and even when he comes up, then you're not saying, play 60 games. We have Gustafsson, who's the starter. Come spare him and hopefully take it over.
And Gustafsson, breakout performance or not, if you have that's a good tandem to let the rookie try to fit into. So I think it's a great pick, Jack. A little bit of a trap questionnaire that maybe should have deserved a little bit more forethought, but here we are.
My apologies. Can I take
my apologies?
Can I take this first one?
Yeah, biggest disappointment.
Artemi Panarin, 2 points throughout the first round for the New York Rangers. Absolute ghost, guy that's getting paid millions and millions of dollars from the Dolan family and the New York Rangers. And the fact is, he was awful and a ghost, and I think a big reason why New York wasn't able to kind of power past the Devils like some may have thought after taking the first 2 games in New Jersey. Artemi Panarin, wake up, make it look like you want to be there, make it look like you want to win a cup, because it looked undesirable from the Russian forward.
Yeah, I like the pick. I was looking at a lot of Rangers, and I think I like the Panarin call because I think there were so many guys with, it seems odd to say, but higher profiles who people looked at. I think Patrick Kane, Tarasenko, even though I think most people would say Panarin might at this point be the best player out of the 3, or you'd expect to. There were so many guys to look at as disappointments in that series, and I like the Panarin call because he really didn't do shit.
Couldn't agree more. I'm still figuring out which one I'm going to go with because I'm going to ignore the Bruins. I've done enough Bruins disappointment bashing, but I think it's a great choice, and I'm curious what the Arm Dog has.
Yeah, so I'll just preface this. We've talked about him too much, and I think everyone knows where we stand. But Jake Ottinger is, like, to me, the guy who was just never good enough for a team that got that far, and it was disappointing because if he was just showed shades of being that elite goalie people think he is, we could be talking about a completely different series. Maybe a series that's still going on, or Game 7 just played, something like that, you know. So that was one, but I'm not going to go with that one. The guy I'm going to go with, who I actually don't think was
teaser.
I just don't want to. I don't want to.
That's funny. I have
him.
2 guys in my head, so now I'm going to do the same BS. But go.
Well, I just didn't want to talk about him because we've already shat on.
So who's your pick?
My pick is Austin Matthews, and I don't think he had a bad playoff series. But when you look at guys like Eichel, when you look at guys like Sam Bennett, when you look at these like true alphas out there, you know, like I have not seen that in a playoff series from Austin Matthews yet, and it's like there's so many potential missing pieces from Toronto. I think if Austin Matthews played his size and wanted it every night, seemingly more than he does, and I think part of that's his face, which makes maybe unfair, but like the fact is the production and the play isn't showing what the caliber of player he is, and it's a huge question mark as to like what could he be if he decided to go beast mode. Because I'm looking at Eichel like playing like a beast. Like the dude's playing a 200-foot game like an absolute tank, and he's changing games on the like every shift he's out there. I just haven't seen that from Austin Matthews. It seems like he gets jammed up, and they just put him in a little box, and he has no answer. So it's disappointing, and again, not like he was bad. He's just a player of a caliber that you need to see him be great.
I like that pick. I think he was an okay performer versus the Lightning in round 1, and he was kind of a ghost versus the Panthers. And this is a guy that you expect after scoring as many goals as he does in the regular season that's just going to continue. And yeah, I mean, we could have gone down the roads of Pastrnak, who kind of lit on late in that Panthers series in round 1, but Matthews, it felt like it was going to come. It never really did. And so for that, I get that, and I think that's a fair comment. There's a lot going on with what Matthews' future is, given with everything going on in Toronto, and I'm excited to get there when we do. But no, Austin Matthews, a little lacking, especially in round 2.
Here's my beef with the pick, Arm Dog. I'm not disappointed in Austin Matthews because this is what I expect out of Austin Matthews in the playoffs.
See, there's the Bruins fan out of him.
No, I get it.
But yes, it's warranted. It's very warranted at this point.
So I just felt like he had his opportunity. They beat the Giant of Tampa. It's like, okay, now you guys got through that. You grinded through that. Let's see something. You know, you're playing an 8 seed, and not like I think we're clear about not disrespecting Florida and treating them like an 8 seed, but still, like there's too much talent for me to ever like fully give up on him until he's retired, really, or like old and washed up, because like there's that chance. And I'm not saying it'll come. I get what you're saying. It's not being disappointed, but
for as elite of a shot he had in the Florida series, 26 shots, none of them found the twine. For a guy with the elite shot that he's supposed to have, you could say bad puck luck, you could say bad luck. I think it did lack, at least in round 2.
Yeah, well, I mean, what can I say? I'm not disappointed in Austin Matthews.
I get it.
Because that happened years ago.
All right, give us your tease and then hammer
So
on
Jack
home.
saying Panarin reminded me of a guy that has his rusty playoff stamp and maybe might get it revoked, Mika Zibanejad.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
And so this is where my disappointment comes, because Zibanejad is not a cake eater Austin Matthews.
No.
Zibanejad is a 200-foot beast at center that took over at times in New York's runs prior. he just sucked in this series. And I don't know if he was dealing with an injury or what it was, but it's like every time, he would make a big neutral zone turnover play, lead into some kind of an odd man rush, he'd like fumble fuck the puck or take a shot and miss the net wide or try to make the extra pass and it would get tipped or bounced. And that was tough to see. And I think that trickled into his defensive game, which is really a death knell for a guy that has so much to offer coming up short. But that's not my pick. Doing the arm drag move.
Tease.
Nice.
Keeping it in-state, Bo Horvat. In his prior postseason with Vancouver, he was a goal-a-game player, and he signs this big-ticket deal. There's a lot of stats. I know my buddy Jack is sitting there probably driving around batting cage to batting cage saying, I told you so. But, he scored his shooting percentage right, was way, way, way outlandish, on pace for a crazy record year, and the Islanders acquire him, extend him at the rate, expecting him to continue, and he took a lot of steps back. And the steps back during the regular season production, that's one thing. And, when he joined the Islanders, that he didn't stay on that pace, that's one thing. But getting into the postseason and not being a major force in that series, kind of just blending in with all the other Kyle Palmieris on the roster, that's why you're making twice as much as those other guys. It's why you need to stand out, Bo. So I'm not removing the playoff stamp from Bo or Mika, but that was my biggest disappointment as I picked the Islanders to upset the Canes.
No, and I think, Alex, you hinted at Tarasenko. I don't think Tarasenko would deserve to be on this list. I think Zibanejad absolutely did.
I thought Tarasenko was one of the
I know.
the only guys on the Rangers you got to be happy
Armor
with.
teased about it a little bit.
I just said there's so many names that
Yes.
I don't think you named Tarasenko by name.
No, I did.
Oh.
But I said it was more of an example of why Panarin might not be getting the spotlight.
Right.
There's 6 stars.
Yep. No,
Not
absolutely.
to mention Patrick Kane, who wasn't great.
Well, that shines. I don't think he was I think Zibanejad, Panarin, a lot of question marks. The whole Rangers roster is a big disappointment in reality. But then I think they brought in Horvat to kind of hopefully bring another big star in to help Matthew Barzal. It didn't really pull out that way. 2 points throughout that 6-game series in the first round. It seemingly feels like forever ago talking about the Islanders, but that's what we do. We cover it all. And
I know. How long ago does it feel?
It felt like I completely forgot the Islanders were in the playoffs. But no, Bo Horvat signs the big ticket. Yes, you can understand. I think you come into a new city, come into New York, being as outspoken as he was about playing in a city that felt like they wanted to win, as he said. Taking a few shots at Vancouver, he was a ghost. So I like the pick.
All right, boys. Who to watch 2024? Is that redundant? We'll make it quick. You guys are up. I volunteered to go last. Who's going?
I've got a few lists I'm going to rack off. I loved what I saw briefly out of Ty Cartier in Seattle. I think he's a young prospect that he cracked the lineup basically in the postseason and pretty much stayed throughout Seattle's run. So I loved what I saw from him. I'm going to bring back my Carolina Hurricanes goalie room because what is going to happen there? Yes, Frederik Andersen may not have been as bad as I was hinting at, but I think there are some serious question marks. I'm not going to even try and pronounce the Russian young star that they've gotten in their franchise or their organization that they're hoping to kind of take over the pipes from Rata and Anderson. But there is a guy there, and then the crack attack.
Just the Kraken overall.
Crack attack. Oh, I love the vibes.
I don't know what their contract situations are, but I feel like they're pretty much running it back. I don't think.
Well, here's the thing: the Crack Attack were on my potential list because I had a feeling there were going to be some stolen. We look at the Crack Attack have this good postseason. I think they're going to maybe look to make a Vegas Eichel type move if that's available.
Interesting.
I think it makes sense. They have so many guys that showed out in that series to where you can say okay, we can package a group of these guys, right? And they may not have a tuck. I don't know if they have a tuck, but they have a lot of guys, and it's seemingly in a position to maybe trade for somebody a little bit more in the elite end of talent, because they saw what they could do with the core they have.
I think Vince Dunn's a contract that's coming up that they're probably going to lose.
Yeah, but again, that's why they may look to, because when you have so many guys performing at this $4 million level, right?
Yeah.
Those are valuable pieces for other teams.
Yeah.
And we just saw what Vegas did. They kind of transitioned from such a great run with this team, and they made an aggressive move even after a good year. They didn't stay put, and I think that is treating them incredibly well, seeing how Eichel's playing right now. I wonder if the Kraken make a similar move. I think they're an interesting team to watch in the offseason because there is, even though pretty much everyone played well, there's so many areas to improve. Pretty much.
There's also
any
not
level.
that big name. Like
Exactly.
Bertuzzi's a top 10 free agent. Obviously,
no, it's going to come by
it's
trade.
not a huge.
The following year is the big year. That's
Correct,
when Austin
correct.
Matthews
So I guess
is
maybe
out there.
wait.
Maybe McJesus. Is he? No, he's got another couple.
He's got 2,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, but yeah.
Who wants to go next? Go ahead, Rusty.
Rusty, I'll let you go. Yeah.
All right. That's the great call, Jack. You got my brain going in so many different directions. It's like Yanni Gord and Brandon Tanev. They're not breakout players because you know what you're going to get from them. But Adam Larson's a guy that I ignored. Again, I'm looking in hindsight. He would have been a good breakout defense. I thought he was awesome showing return to game, and the fact that his career is very much alive and well when a lot of people thought maybe he'd be out of the league this year or next. So tip of the cap for that. Who to look for? I feel like the LA Kings are close. I just have a feeling about it. Kopitar's getting up there, and I feel like it's time with Kopitar and Doughty for them to put their chips in and figure it out. I saw that Arvidsson's a guy they're maybe trying to trade.
They want to keep
Gavrinkov. Yep.
He wants to stay.
And I thought he was awesome too. He was
and
as
they found
expected.
Korpisalo as their new goalie.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're convinced of Korpisalo. I don't think they love
signed
his play.
though. I know he is signed.
Okay, so whether they try the goalie carousel or they try to move Arvidsson and mix up that top 9 grouping, I think there might be a trade partner between LA and Boston to make a real hockey trade. So I'm just saying, keep an eye out. I feel like where their franchise is, they've proven that they're close. And I don't know, maybe Quentin Byfield is a trade piece. Maybe he breaks through and figures it out. I don't know, but I feel like there's something there in LA. And I really like Todd McClellan. I thought he did an excellent job this year coaching.
Well, I'm glad you made this pick because I wanted you to go first because I had a feeling you were going to make the pick. And they were on my list too. As the prospect watcher, this is the best prospect pool in hockey. It's deep and it's close. They're going to have a lot of new names next year that are high-end talents, which makes them a great trade partner for a lot of teams. And they have an ability to go get a goalie if they want. I think they could go out to Boston and say,
is a free agent. I got to
let's go make a trade for one of Boston's goalies. Give them some more prospect depth. Give them some more young players who can contribute. They have the ability to do that because they already have a pretty good lineup, and they have so many guys coming up. I thought the young D-core looked great. I thought Quentin Byfield needs to take another step, but talk about the best guy you could possibly learn from as a big center, Anze Kopitar. And you could just see what Byfield could be as an Anze Kopitar if he puts it together. Which is a big if. But when you learn from a guy like that, it matters a lot. So I love the pick. It was on my list, but I'm glad you took it because I had a feeling you were.
It's a team that has its veterans. I mean, Philly Deneau, he kind of covered McDavid for more than you would have expected for what they could have done to shut down.
Just the roster construction.
Yeah.
When you have Deneau and Kopitar.
Yep, Fiala. It's.
But down the middle with those two guys that are a bitch to play against, feels like I really want to see them break through and maybe get a third one of those guys.
Yeah,
And go full, just go full pest.
Right. Alex, who are you picking for your look forward to in 2024?
Yeah, so this was a team with some flaws, but I think we're all pretty impressed with how they played, and we all labeled them as a year too early. New Jersey Devils. I think the big takeaway here is Jack Hughes looked great. It may not have put up the points everyone was wanting. That I don't know. People seemingly expect points to just translate to the playoffs instantly. That's not how it works. But he looked great. We talked about Dougie Hamilton issues. Those are still there. But I think the D-core as a whole looked pretty solid. And another guy who I like to see coming, and I think could have a bigger season next year for them, especially in the playoffs where I expect them to be, Timo Meier.
Yeah.
Never felt like he fully got up there, and it also felt like he was just getting the shit kicked out of him. Like, he was taking so many big collisions,
in a tough one.
I think the one Trouba hit feels like a million things over, so I think that might be.
But there was a lot.
Was on that point throughout the whole.
Dude, there was even before the Trouba hit, he was on the ice a lot, and it wasn't because of him being soft. He was getting. I don't maybe he was putting himself in that position. I don't know what it was.
Yep.
But I think another year with that team is going to make a big difference.
And they already extended him, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't always mesh, but we know what caliber of player he is, and he was playing playoff hockey. So there's a lot of young pieces there, a lot of guys who could.
And Myers locked up, right?
Myers locked up.
Yep. He just extended.
Yeah, but I like them, and I also thought like Palat, Tatar, all these guys. They showed like the Tatar signing I like in particular because that's not a flash. That's not a Palat signing. That's kind of a buy low, buy mid-grade player who played okay. Like I like what they're doing there.
Love that point on Tatar. The Devils to me, and it's a bigger offseason topic, but I thought we as a podcast were so forward thinking when we had the Winnipeg conversation. How many Kyle Connors can you have on your roster? And they've already got Jack Hughes, who's probably the best of that style player in the league. Probably.
Yeah.
Why are you re-signing Jesper Bratt? Trade his ass.
Yeah, I kind of
trade his ass.
I kind of agree.
Trade his ass and get a haul in return. He's a great player, but you're not hurting for top end skill, and we saw the depth issues. So I think finding a way to get great value for Bratt, and I don't know, my brain started going in a lot of crazy directions about how to trade Dougie Hamilton because I think he has a lot of value out there.
A career year, maybe.
I was thinking maybe Dougie for Darnell Nurse.
Oh, Jesus.
But you get a bunch of other things from Edmonton too. Maybe you get like a Klim Kostin. Maybe you get like a Fogle, like a Warren Fogle. Maybe you get some of those ready to go NHL depth guys.
I feel like you're calling for Woody's head. I feel like you're coming for Woody's spot right now. You're making me a little nervous.
Woody's head is on the chopping block for sure. But he'll find. He's not going to leave.
Maybe there'll be room with no upcoming draft picks in Boston.
Imagine Woody on third line Arizona.
No, but this Devils team has a lot coming. I mean, Mercer coming on, Bratt. Yeah, there's some question marks there. But the Devils have something cooking, and it's kind of fun and exciting to watch. And hopefully the goalie questions of Schmid and Vanacek can be solved quickly, and they won't have another guy that they're pretty reliable in and come in and just kind of shit your pants through the first two games. But we'll see what happens. I like the pick. I like the series. Or the segment. Ross, any final thoughts on what we just did, or are we ready to break down? I'm gonna hold my last thought.
None whatsoever.
I got one other thought.
Well, finisher.
I picked 3 teams for my teams to watch.
Yeah.
You guys each picked one, and I had a feeling you guys were. So I just like our pod unity on our key takeaways.
Great
I
minds think
like
alike.
that we can test each other, but we got that cohesion.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Stanley Cup Final Preview. We've reached it. It is it's here. It kicks off on Saturday, and thank God it's all on TNT, ESPN. Sayonara, you're done for the year. It's all TNT hockey from here on out. Kenny Albert, take it away. Can't wait. We got 2 teams. We started with 16. We're down to 2. And we're going to start with the best team, well, the highest-rated team of the playoffs at least left, the Vegas Golden Knights, after knocking off the Dallas Stars 4-2, knocking off the Edmonton Oilers in 6, and beaten Winnipeg in 5. The Vegas Golden Knights, as we hinted at, are returning to their Stanley Cup final for their second time in their brief history as a franchise. Jack Eichel finally playing in a Stanley Cup final.
Odds-on favorite for the Conn Smythe.
A rookie goaltender in what you've seen as Vegas Golden Knights kind of plugging and playing with pretty much anyone they've put in there besides Jonathan Quick has worked out, and they're in the Stanley Cup final. What do we want to dissect first? We've covered a little bit of their run of what it's gotten to get to this point. We'll talk lineup. I want to see kind of an X factor, I guess, is what we'll start with. Your big X factor for this Vegas team, and then we'll kind of dig into their depth. So why don't you lead us off?
Sure, and we talked about how rare it is for a team to make the Stanley Cup final without one cakewalk series along the way. And the fact that they took care of Winnipeg after losing their first playoff game, and like that can be a real whirlwind when you are the number 1 seed in the West. You've got a head coach that's new to the team, that's had playoff success, that a lot is expected of joining this team. You've got your new star, Eichel, who's finally in his first playoffs. Yeah. And the first game of the playoffs, it wasn't a disaster, but you lose at home to a Winnipeg team you're expected to take care of. The fact that they just buckled down and nailed them 4 in a row right there.
Said a lot.
Promising. Aiden Hill, who's come in as a key goalie for them. Now, Apparently he was a fairly high prospect earlier in his
Phoenix,
career,
I think.
and a
Arizona,
lot of teams and coaches were kind of like, we can't take this guy seriously. He's not really being a professional.
Biz has had Biz was on this one, and I hate to and hate to cut you off, but he had seen a lot of them, obviously covering Arizona, and it's been interesting. Sorry, continue.
No, it's just basically it seems like a guy that always had some good potential. That is just it's like threading a needle. And it's the right player, right time. Mm-hmm. He's playing very sound. They're playing great team defense in front of him. And Bruce Cassidy, his years with the Bruins, take a drink. His years with the Bruins, they were always a Jennings Trophy kind of team. One of the best defensive teams in the league, and Bergeron gets all that credit, right? Everybody's ready to rush to say, look at how much this helps everything out. But I do think that when he came into Boston, he took over for Claude Julien, who was like the ultimate defensive guy, no offense. He freed up the offense, but still allowed the team to maintain that defensive structure. And so what he's brought to Las Vegas, I think, is a lot of the same kind of playing style on that Bruins 2019 team that went to the final and choked on home ice. Shocker to the Blues. But I think that it's a really good mix there. It's strong depth. I've talked about the depth of their D, the size on their D. The Draisaitl Pietrangelo moment for me felt like a little bit of a turning point for them.
Yeah.
And I thought I rightly called that leadership from Pietrangelo.
I don't think that was a turning point.
Disagree.
I rightly called that leadership.
Disagree.
I don't think it was a turning point.
Digging right in, I think we have not seen a playoff performance like we have from a guy like Jonathan Marchessault. He has been in the right spot. He has been lighting it up on the score sheet for this Vegas team. You guys can comment on it. I think the biggest trade deadline acquisition of Ivan Barbashev from St. Louis.
That's a good point. Barbashev is the biggest ticket trade deadline guy left.
At least I think he's been the most. I think he's been the most effective of any trade deadline.
Who else in the final is in the conversation? I don't think anybody.
I don't think so.
I don't think there's another trade.
There's Jonathan Quick, who's
but
been
my
on
point
the
is my point is that he has been the most consistent, and I think he's been the biggest trade deadline acquisition throughout the whole playoffs. Sure. Is my point. You've seen Willie Karlsson come alive a little bit in this Dallas series. You love to see that. Well,
he had some 13 goals regular season. He's already got 8.
Yeah,
I mean,
and he scored
awesome.
two in that 6-0 rout over Dallas. Chandler Stevenson, I think a guy that is so reliable throughout his 200-foot game. He is a reliable center. He is part of that 4-man shutdown D that they cover in front of the net, and it might suck and be boring for your opposing team fans to watch, but the fact is, it's unbelievable. It truly is.
And Jack, the reason I think it's not boring the way they kind of pack it in is because all their defensemen move the puck so well.
Yeah.
So they can play that kind of boring, block it up, but then as soon as the puck gets to their D-man, they're making a great breakout pass and causing a lot of rushes on the other side.
Oh, well, you saw it.
They don't seem like Carolina.
Yeah.
They don't seem like just this clampy defensive team that just sits back. They use it. They use it to play offense, which is what you want. It's funny because they look like a really well coached team, but it's like, what exactly is the style of play that they have? It's not very clear because they kind of do a lot.
They can win any kind of game, right?
And
that's huge.
They play at actual 200-foot game.
Yep.
I feel like sometimes people think defensive game is 200-foot game.
Well, and that's where I think people were pretty intrigued to watch Dallas, that kind of were waiting to see that scoring kind of come on, and Vegas really never allowed it. I mean, I think Dallas's most goals scored in the series were 4 in Game 5, and the fact is, when you've got a guy like Alec Martinez and Alexander Pietrangelo leading the D and 2 Stanley Cup winners, I couldn't think of a 1-2 better punch that remains in the playoffs. Obviously, with only 2 teams, that's not to say a whole lot. But the fact is, these guys are veterans that have seen it. They've done it. They've got the mileage and they've got the experience. And I think Vegas couldn't be happier to see these 2 guys lead the charge. And then you got guys like McNabb, who had a big goal. I think a big assist from Marchessault, sliding it across the crease. You saw McNabb jump into the play, score a big goal for Vegas in that Dallas series, and And Haig was roughing it up a little bit with Domi at the end of what was it, game 5? Game 4.
Another guy I should have mentioned on my post.
So it's just like, I mean, this Vegas team, it's plug and play. It's replace. It's stay consistent. Yes, Alex has his issues with Mark Stone and his ability to maneuver the long-term IR, but the fact is he's come back. He looks like he hasn't missed a step, and this Vegas team is cruising on all cylinders. Boys, who's your X factor for this Vegas Golden Knights team coming into this Cup final?
I'm ready to go, Arm.
Yeah, I mean, I got it. Go ahead.
So everybody's been pretty good, and so when you say X factor to me, Florida's a beast right now, and so is Las Vegas. So, side note, the fact why does every Canadian refer to them as Vegas? Vegas.
It's just an accent, bro.
I don't. Anyway, so when you say X factor to me, it's basically two. Like, I've got a forward and a defenseman that I think need to come alive. Riley Smith up front.
Yeah.
Who's been quiet, but sometimes it's okay when he's quiet. But also, if they're gonna, if they're playing tight games and Bob is out of his mind, they're gonna need to get goals from all different kinds of sources.
Riley Smith is that guy that scores those goals.
Kind of is.
At least he did in that last Vegas Stanley Cup final run, I feel like.
And then on the blue line, it's getting offense from Shea Theodore.
Yeah, you kind of stole mine. When you said a defenseman, too, I knew it was coming. But I love it. I love the pick. I mean, a guy who has not been as active is when you watch him in the regular season, he's very active. And it's not saying he's been bad. But I think he has the ability to make a guy miss and break down the whole – make a guy miss, make the right pass, and the whole defense is just broken. And people take advantage because he does such a good job with that first pass. So I love that pick. I love both the picks, really. I think Riley Smith is a bit more. Does he get those bounces going in? Does he get in those areas and get the bounces going? Shea Theodore is more. Does he elevate his game a little bit offensively? But I mean, the way they're playing, it's almost like maybe he doesn't try to do that as much because it's been so effective. But I still think he's got that ability in whatever system to make shimmy one guy and just make a great play.
And if they're going to beat Bobrovsky when he's in God mode, like, they're going to need Shea Theodore from the point to do one of two things a couple times throughout the series. Shimmy step a guy and basically have a forward that comes out to him that he just undresses, walks around, and now it's a complete breakdown, odd man in the O-zone, which, newsflash, for how good Florida's been, right? They're still not the best defensive zone team. And that could be huge. And then the other one is the Brent Birds getting shots through from the point into madness and tips and deflections because, again, no matter how great Bob is, and it feels like literally even these kinds of plays haven't found their way through him. If you can't see it, you can't stop it. So finding ways to do that, it's really hard to think about a way that either one of these teams is going to lose a series based on how they played.
Yeah, no, I think. Alex,
sounds so negative talking about them losing instead of winning.
Do you want to go next on your X Factor?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Unless you're ready.
No, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to give you two because that's what I do. One guy who I think could break the series and has top scorer potential in this series, Mark Stone. I've been a big Mark Stone guy dating back to Ottawa days. And yes, I do think the LTIR are abused with him, but I don't necessarily hate on him for that. That's just take advantage of the rules, It's not your job. So Mark Stone's one guy. I like Stevenson a lot, too. NHL Twitter joining it has been a great thing, and one of the first things I saw on that was a Vegas fan saying Chandler Stevenson is the best contract in hockey. And that made me focus on him because all of a sudden this was this strong take by somebody who knows if that's actually the case, but it showed what they thought of him for a guy that doesn't post the loftiest point numbers. He puts up points, but it made me watch that guy. But my true X factor for the series, and a guy who, when I first looked at the roster, I'm like, I don't think he's going to be the biggest X factor, but I think he is going to be tasked with the Bennett-Tkachuk line, William Karlsson.
Fuck you.
I think he is the shutdown guy, that line of Smith, Karlsson, and Amadio. We haven't figured it out yet. We're going to need to look that up. But I think that is who they're going to try to put on Bennett and Tkachuk. And I think the first two games, they're going to get the dose of that. And then I think if it is working, by game 3, they're not going to get that because Florida's going to avoid it. So I'm interested to see if they. I don't think they need to put up offense. Like I don't think Carlson needs to put up offense like he has been to be the X factor. I think he needs to play them competitively.
But it wouldn't shock me if you saw the lines change a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe Mark Stone's on that line, who's another great defensive player.
Yep.
Maybe Stevenson goes up and plays wing and they load the top. I don't know. I think it's more important to have the balance, but you never know.
Yeah.
Injuries, etc. So I wouldn't count on Amadeo, whatever the hell is Amadeus. No, I think that's a big matchup to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And I think for kind of Ross's point to come alive, I think Willie Karlsson needs to kind of continue using his speed, continue being that threat, continue causing issues, and then maybe Riley Smith will find his way kind of open. Willie Karlsson's kind of my X factor as well. I think you got to look at what the matchup plays. Both Paul Maurice, he's a tactician. You got to see what these guys are going to change up within their lineups, especially with Cassidy. My X factor as a whole, I think it is crucial that you get into Bob within the first game, within the first period. They did it to Ottinger. Get in Sergei Bobrovsky's head, get him off his game, create that controversy that maybe you go back to a guy that, now I can't even remember his name at this point. Who's the backup?
Jonathan Quick.
No.
Oh, Alex Lyon.
Yeah, if you get Lyon in that series, holy hell, are you excited for Vegas? And so my X factor kind of as a whole, get into Bobrovsky's head.
War on Bob.
Yeah, war on Bob.
It changes the series if they blow him up game one.
Jack, I think that's such a great point, and it frustrates me that Dallas didn't do more of this. Jesus Christ. That the Canes didn't do more of this. I'm sorry, Termites. So it'll be really interesting to see like the pace of game one, and I'm excited to get back into the beginning of a series too, right? But because if they don't disrupt Bobrovsky, then it's going to be the old Friday Night Lights, Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah. Flip the coin.
You're either going to get in Bobrovsky's head, or you're going to watch Midland Lee take your season.
Yep.
Take your season.
He was in. He crossed the goal line, in my opinion.
But my thing is, I think it's going to be a violent first game.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think Kolasar, where does he come alive on that fourth line and kind of muck things up? Where does Vegas kind of muck things up versus this termite or Panthers lineup that we will get to?
And you know who's going to be standing right at the gates of Thermopylae, where the battle gets closest quarters, right in front of his goalie on the Florida side. Radko.
Yeah, Brad, who's going to challenge that?
Yeah. Final thoughts on it.
Can I ask one question? This is off topic, but this is a Ross reference. I got to know. Do you just reference Friday Night Lights, the show?
No,
the film.
The movie.
You referenced the film. Movie. Okay, good.
Yep. But no, Vegas.
It's the better one.
All they've done throughout the playoffs, there is no shaking up Hellbuck and kind of.
I don't watch
things
soap
up.
operas.
But the fact is, they got to Skinner, they got to Campbell, they got to Ottinger. Can they get to Bob?
And fair, Skinner, Campbell, right? Not that tough, right?
No,
Ottinger, pretty tough.
No, but Hellbuck, I think Hellbuck kind of stole that game one for Winnipeg, and Winnipeg came out and
totally
in full force, and Vegas kind of threw it all into the gas pedal and just didn't look back.
For sure.
Haven't looked back since. Final thoughts on Vegas before we move on to the Panthers.
Will anyone on the broadcast say Vegas instead of Vegas?
Vegas.
Well, Kenny Albert's American, isn't he?
We'll see if we get a Vegas. Maybe Kenny Albert will be our savior.
Yeah.
You can guarantee Biz will be all up on it during the
champion
intermissions.
Of Vegas.
Yeah. I have one last thought on Vegas.
Yeah,
because
we
talked about him, but it was none of our X factors, and maybe should be. Maybe it's too obvious of an X factor. Is Eichel the dude? Is he a top 5 center in this league? Let's see it.
I think he did.
I'm not saying he hasn't shown it, but
I think his play besides the puck, away from the puck, has spoken to true words. I mean, what he did in the Edmonton season, I thought, or Edmonton series, was impressive, and he was scoring a bit more. You saw the scoring kind of slow down a little bit in this one versus Dallas, but I agree with you. I think
just
if
watch
Eichel,
the game,
if Eichel comes alive, he could very easily outshadow Kachuk. Very easily.
And we've seen inconsistent officiating throughout the entire playoffs. I don't know that it's been so one-sided in a single game. It's just been confusing and disruptive and sort of equally weird all the time, which is annoying. But at the end of the day, it's the refs' jobs to not favor one team instead of the other, and even if they're bad, to be equally bad. So I guess good for them. But Eichel power play, making plays that eliminate Bob from it, right? Making plays on empty nets where Bob's not even doesn't have a chance. That could be huge because I mean, yes, Eichel's been great and he can be an X factor, but I think he's going to have Barkov up his ass 5-on-5 all the time.
So.
I don't expect him to win that matchup like in a landslide, right? I think he could edge that matchup. But I think that what he brings to their power play could be a scenario where Florida maybe gets, they take too many penalties and they've had the worst penalty kill in the playoffs.
It's seemingly like all 5-on-5, it feels like Florida's had a guy in the box at least every 5 minutes.
And he could be a Radko target.
Yeah,
He's
that's
primed
true.
Radko target.
It was Marchand the first round.
Chasing a jet fighter with a tank, but I get it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Time to move on to the Cinderella story.
It's a good comp.
Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers, the 8th seed, the second wildcard team. The Cinderella story. After dropping the first, going 3-1 versus Boston, they've rattled off 11 out of 12.
Insane. Think about that.
11 out of 12. For a team that had some overhaul. President's Cup trophy, as we've covered last year.
It's just the President's Trophy. The President's Cup.
President's Trophy, yep. That's a golf. Oh, no, it's a golf event.
Okay, America's Cup.
But the fact is, this Florida Panthers team has taken and kind of carried the hearts of Florida and seemingly America. And at least the hockey world, not America. But
Chuck was on NBA and TNT, though.
It was wild. I mean, he is Charles Barkley's favorite player. Charles Barkley has called him a better player than his father already. That's we'll get there when we get there. But no, this Florida Panthers team has done it all. And the fact is, we'll take a quick look at the run. Beaten the Boston Bruins in 7. I'm sorry, Rusty, knocking off the top seed in the playoffs. Beaten the Core 4 and the Toronto Maple Leafs in 5. Taking care of business. Closing out in what is supposed to be Toronto, a tough hockey market, only for their home team, because that's what the reality was. And disposing of the Carolina Hurricanes in 4. In 4. And the fact is, this team's been sitting, a week? Close to 7 days?
It'll be a week come Saturday.
And that will definitely come into to our conversation. But the fact is, this Florida Panthers team, everyone knows Matthew Tkachuk, but it has been so much more than just Tkachuk in this whole team. Boys, dive into it. The Cinderella story of the 2022-2023 season, the Florida Panthers. Who wants to lead it off?
Yeah, so I got 1 point because I have a lot, but the first thing I noticed as we've written down our notes for this series and these teams, their path to get here. First, you beat the Bruins, who were the clear favorite for the Stanley Cup, complete team all around. You battle back, beat them.
I think they were 12-1 underdogs in that series.
Yeah,
there was like a 5% chance.
Or no, 8-1, 835 plus 835 was the odds. I know because I bet it.
Well, when they went down 3-1, I think they had 5% chance of coming back.
It was something stupid though. But like but the bigger point there is they beat a complete team from top to bottom. Then they go up against Toronto, offensive powerhouse, questions about how they play in the playoffs, beat them in 5. Then they go up against essentially the opposite team in Carolina, sound defensively, not the star power, beat them in 4.
It's a good point.
They've kind of gone through the gauntlet of like.
Oh, they've taken 1, 2, 3. They've taken it.
I know they've taken 1, 2, 3, but they're also completely different styles of teams, all 3.
Yeah,
and they've handled them, especially if you're one-sided. I think Vegas tends more towards the Bruins side of things, where they have a complete game, as we've just talked about, which makes this a super exciting series because it seems like if you favor one side of the game, they're gonna take advantage. But I just looking at this on paper, and I know who they've beaten. I know it's high seeds. Just going out and beating different styles of play dominantly, and not with the Bruins. They didn't dominate the Bruins, but still impressive as comeback. This is a really impressive playoff stretch right now. I mean, I think we're talking about if they were to close this out, and this may be a post-Cup Finals pod topic, but like we're talking about one of the most impressive stretches in the playoffs. Of just beating straight big ass teams. They're not getting that lucky second round matchup.
So Sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
Last 8th seed to win it.
Well,
Kings?
it's funny. I was looking at but so from a historic perspective. So yes, the Kings were last 8 seed to win it, but that was the Kings' second cup in a handful of years.
Correct. And
they
it
had
was
a
a
weird
year where 8-1, 8. It was a weird. There was a different bracket than what we're looking at.
and the
now.
Kings had like a weird fucked up year that was up and down, and then they figured it out. And by the time they got there, it's like
early Tampa. They had some injuries. They kind of played their cards right.
But taking a historic perspective, the biggest underdog runs to the Stanley Cup final that I can think of in my hockey viewing lifetime, Edmonton Oilers with Chris Pronger in 06-07.
Okay, fair.
Made it to the final and lost.
Yep.
Couple hard-fought overtime games. I want to say they lost in 5. Maybe 6, but it was – ooh.
Was that a 7?
Yikes. It could have been. I don't know.
They also beat the
They
Wings.
lost to Carolina, though. They lost to Carolina.
And they also beat the Wings, who were the Bruins of that year.
Correct. So there's that Edmonton team, right? That was Dwayne Rollison.
Dwayne Rollison.
Crazy.
Jared Stoll was a
Couple
big
names to
factor.
remember.
Oh.
And then it was the John Sebastian Giguère Mighty Ducks of Anaheim
Yep.
with Mike Babcock behind the bench. You had, just such a gritty and like veteran, all over the place team and lineup with so few superstars. Like do either of you know who Keith Carney is?
No.
Like you really shouldn't. Do you know who Steve Ruchin is?
No.
You really shouldn't. Sammy Paulson.
Yes.
Ring a bell?
Yes. Played as a Hawk. He was a Hawk at one point.
Okay. So my point is like these were the key contributors behind heroic goaltending from Jean-Sébastien Giguère. And
Just quick comp there. Notorious weight loser during the game as well. That's
Yeah.
the comp of
Him and Bob.
Him and Bob have lost the most weight after games. They're like notorious for losing. Like Giguère lost like 5 liters of water. Something crazy.
Yeah.
Like same deal.
freaking goalies. It's no surprise why they're such weirdos. But I got all the way aboard on that team because we had a teacher in school who was like a big hockey guy and he loved the Red Wings, and we were just like absolute just knuckle draggers. Loved like gooning it up like Canadian hockey, and he was like he spent time in Norway, like thought he was all European, and it was like, dude, you're from fucking Stoneham, shut up. But as soon as they beat the Wings, we just rubbed it in his face the whole way. So I remember that team and watched it really closely. They flamed out against the Devils, right? The last Scott Stevens team that won it all. Year before the lockout. And then the other one would be the 01-02 Carolina Hurricanes that went all the way to the final before losing to
01.
Detroit? Yeah, Detroit took care of them. That was a much better team that just ultimately broke through.
One of the best teams ever, yeah.
So you take a historic perspective and you look at what they've done, and it's like they've got house money. There's like it sounds crazy to say it. There's pressure on all the teams at this point. You're so close. Like the players know, right? The players know. Even the young guys, right? Kachuk's what, 25, 26?
Something like that.
Bennett's 27. Barkov 26, 27.
Reinhardt's probably 29.
Ekblad's 27.
28.
So it's like it's a core of guys
How old's
that
Gudas?
Gudas is up there.
35?
He'll be one of the first guys to get the cup if they win it.
Totally.
Forsling's young.
I just thought of the image of
Stahl too, Mark Stahl.
Eric,
Eric
and Mark. I think Eric's older than Mark.
Yeah.
Mark's 38. Eric's got to be 40.
Yeah.
I think he is 40.
Jesus. I just had the image in my head. I think for the first time of Radko Gudas hoisting the Stanley Cup.
With the
Don't
10-foot
spoil it.
beard.
Don't jinx
Oh
them.
my God, that image. Oh my God. Anyway, but these wins, 11 out of 12 wins, these have not been blowout wins, right?
No.
It's just every single tight game moment they've found a way. They've just found a way through.
Oh, I think we saw it in 4 overtimes versus Carolina. We saw it.
Carolina 3 out of 4 games in the sweep were overtime.
Yeah.
That's
It wasn't even a sweep.
Well, not 3 out of 4, but right, it was. Oh yeah, it was 3 out of 4, and then the fourth one was in 4.6 left
Dude,
in
that
regulation.
wasn't even a sweep, and it was a sweep.
Thanks,
now.
Roddy.
No, I think it's interesting. You look at Alex kind of made the point of what you've seen through the 3 teams they've faced. I think Carolina is going to be the most similar to what Vegas is going to bring in terms of kind of being careful, chipping pucks in, not giving up stupid mistakes. I think Vegas is a team that is much more talented in terms of having guys that can kind of just turn up on a dime versus missing a guy like Svechnikov that Carolina did miss. It's tough. I mean, you got to cover guys like Marchessault. You got to cover guys like Eichel. You got to cover guys Stone. It is a tough task, but they did it versus Toronto. They covered Matthews. They covered Marner. They covered Nylander. They covered Tavares. They covered these guys, and then they did it before that versus Boston. I mean, yes, Pastrnak came alive towards the end of that series, but they never allowed Marchand to really make a too big of an impact on it. They never let Boston carry away with it. And the fact is, you look at it, I think when you've got a line that has a fourth line age with Eric Stahl being on there, but your boy Ryan Lomberg and Colin White, which we couldn't find out. We'll find out who the mix and play is with Colin White being there. But this fourth line, they shut down the Stars of Toronto. I think Stahl was lined up with. I can't remember what the matchup was versus Toronto, but he was.
Eric Stahl was not part of line matchups with Toronto. They were probably trying to hide Eric Stahl. It's really Barkov.
I don't think Eric Stahl's
it's really Barkov.
Shit.
It's Barkov and Bennett. They try to get Barkov on the offense.
I'm on one there.
They try to get Barkov playing the team's top offensive player, and they try to get Bennett and Tkachuk away from the other team's best defensive player. That's the only matchup tweaking they could do, which what I just said are sort of equal and opposite, right? If you're trying to constantly catch Barkov with Eichel, well, don't you kind of want to try your luck with the Bennett line against Eichel and make those guys play in the D zone? Yep. So it'll be some interesting elements to that. I've heard some feedback from various talking heads about line matchups being a little bit less of a focal point in the modern game. But it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, these teams are here for a reason. I think they're both pretty well matched. They're both willing to muck it up. Florida's had the mentality of their team that like they're the muckers. They're the aggressors. They go for it. And I think a lot of their opponents have been saying to themselves, let's not get caught up in Florida's bullshit. Let's do ours. I think it would serve Vegas to maybe start the series trying to get Florida on their heels and start the series playing as the aggressors.
I think that's how Vegas plays, though. And I think they're the first team that really truly plays a very similar style to Florida. I think they're like-for-like matchups. So I'm not really – I think it's going to be back and forth physically. The other thing that I like about these teams, it's not that they have depth guys they brought in to be physical. They are physical, I think oftentimes you see with a lot of teams they have physical players. That's not how either of these teams play.
DNA.
It's in their DNA throughout the lineup, and I think that is so hard to build. And it's why you see two teams in the cup like this. But it's just top to bottom. I mean, they will come hit you. They will play physical. They will play fast. They'll play strong. It's impressive from both sides.
Yeah. X Factors not named.
Well, quickly before we get there, I mean, we talked about what Vegas brings to the table in those big guys. And yes, Florida walking into this playoff barely. I think momentum is on Florida's side in terms of what has happened, what's transpired. At least they feel that way.
Jack, it's just hold on. Momentum is bullshit. Momentum is bullshit. Momentum is bullshit. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Home ice is bullshit. Momentum is bullshit. Both these teams are in the Stanley Cup final. They've got a lot of momentum. They've got a lot of momentum.
I get it, but when you're getting scoring from guys that people don't necessarily know about, but
they haven't played in a week. Is that going to disrupt their momentum?
Oh, I'm just saying that when you've got scoring that has been translated kind of throughout this whole lineup. Verhaeghe's been excellent. Reinhart's been excellent. Bennett's been excellent. Tkachuk has been excellent. Duclair, haven't seen it yet. He's teetled with it a little bit.
Coming alive. Barkov
you saw Barkov come alive. I think that's the momentum I'm talking about. You're getting the guys that are signed, kind of coming back.
No passengers.
And I think that's where you've seen where Barkov came alive in this last series, because I thought he was a little bit of a passenger in the first two series. And yes, he kind of got mucked up, I think, in the Toronto one.
But remember the advanced stats thing?
Yeah.
Which is like even when he's not producing, he's valuable.
I also got a momentum piece, which I think this is looking at the series from top to bottom. You look at teams, and I think oftentimes in hindsight we look at like, oh, this was their proven moment before they won and they played so well in the cup, right? They have a series, they have a test series, and people sometimes like, oh, you need the rest. Sometimes, oh, you need to go have those moments beforehand to be ready. What I like about this is they had their kind of dig deep, get back in a series moment in the first round, and they've kind of been able to rest. And I know some people don't like rest. I'm sorry, at this point in the NHL playoffs, getting a couple days to get those bodies right is huge.
Yeah.
People are beat up right now. they had their tough series, and then they got to they were tough series still, but they got to finish them quickly.
And they've been scoring first a lot.
Yeah. They
First
come
goal-
out ready to play.
And
First goal of the
Las
game.
Vegas has unbelievable stats about how well they protect leads. So, it's super cliche to say teams that score first are going to win, but like it feels like that vibe.
I feel like I guess my word of momentum should have been vibe. Like the vibe,
The vibe is high in Florida.
Because vibe's
Florida.
everything and it's nothing, so you can't really refute it.
The
or
vibe,
get
the
that.
vibes are with Florida. That's what I misspoke on that.
Because
one.
if
But
you lose, the
Yes,
vibe's gone.
yes, the vibes. The
vibes are with Florida.
The
The
hockey
vibes are-
gods have been smiling down upon them, unlike
does-
anyone else.
does the clock hit midnight?
And like
that's-
historically,
that's what-
these kinds of teams it has.
And especially with guys like making runs like Bob, the clock strikes midnight. It happens, and that's why.
Or maybe even you just lose a couple of those double overtime
Yeah.
games instead of winning them like you have.
As Rod the Bod said, it didn't feel like a sweep. It didn't.
Right.
You wanted to throw it to the X Factors. It's time to throw it to the X Factors.
I'm gonna put a ban on X Factors being Bobrovsky and Kachuk because
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
just timely Kachuk goals and Bob playing like a god. Like those have been their X Factors all postseason. Sorry to be such a bull in a china cabinet, but I'm ready to chuck it to either of you or go.
I'll go first. I think we hinted at it. Anthony Duclair, a guy who has the talent, has the scoring. He's been playing in the second line minutes. Need him to come alive. Need him to start scoring. Carry his load, because that's all it's going to be. Carry the load, because that's my second X factor. Carry the load. That's what I've got for the Florida Panthers.
I love that. Duclair is a secondary scoring, speed through the neutral zone, scoring on a rush. Vegas doesn't give up a lot of rushes. They're probably going to be hyper dialed in for the top lines, and maybe Duclair's playing with them. Maybe he's bouncing around, but maybe just maybe a few key goals they're going to need are going to happen when Duclair's on the ice because he's less of a focal point. And he scored 30 goals in the past. He could do it.
No, he's a guy when the puck bounces to him with an open net, you expect him to score. And we talked about in the series recap of the Eastern Conference Finals that goal he had where he ripped one off the post and stayed with it. It was kind of an easy finish, but it was the idea of a greasy goal, which I think a guy who is a little bit more skilled can wake up to, and they can see that and feel it and say, let's do some more of that.
And just no flybys, right? That's such a playoff hockey thing. Like the regular season, you rip one off the post, you might just take the wide turn and go.
Yeah.
But postseason, you got to follow that shot. Follow that shot.
Last final thought, I guess I teased it. The Sams, got to keep it up too.
Reinhart and Bennett. I'm not worried about Bennett.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm not worried. I just carry the load.
Yeah.
Carry the load.
Yeah.
Who wants it next?
I'll go. My X factor is a line, and you don't win with two lines, and they have great two lines. I'm going Lundell, Luosterainen, and Reinhart.
Luosterainen.
I think they have scoring potential. I think they have lockdown potential. I think they're just a really well-built third line, like a very good third line. It's always when it comes to playoffs, there's random scoring that happens. You look for your guys, and a lot of the attention goes to the guys who score the most goals. But there are big goals to be had for pretty much top to bottom on both these lineups. I don't like Florida's fourth line. They've produced actually. Lomberg had a big goal in that game 4. They haven't been bad. I'm not saying that.
They don't get a lot of minutes.
They don't. I think Lundell, Luosterainen, and Reinhart could have a big series here, and maybe not the most impact, but scoring big goals. And Reinhardt's a guy who can get hot. He can get hot. He can start putting pucks in the net, and all of a sudden it's an X factor.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hate on Lundell, Luosterainen either. Like I'm not.
Well, and I think
they're part of it. They're really good players.
I think Reinhart and Lundell are kind of the big scorers of that line. Reinhart being the biggest. You saw Reinhart being able to get on the score sheet. If he can continue that, it's third line scoring, and that is what wins championships. Because the fact is, you need your first two lines to produce. Florida rolls 3. There's not going to be any shortening the shifts of these 3 lines. Obviously, you're going to want the Kachuk line and Barkov out there if it is the final minutes. But I think they feel confident within those 3 to kind of lock it down, be responsible, and create opportunities if they come.
I think those are great picks. Duclair's right up my alley. I was going to maybe say Sam Reinhart. He's had such a great postseason, not only being like elite finishing with the top end guys on the power play, but playing sound defense and making simple, smart plays up and down the ice, no matter who he's playing with. Again, no Bob, no Kachuk. Now we've named half the other guys on the team. So keeping with that theme, I've already given Mark Stahl his bit, and I don't expect him to fall apart. He's been just so he's performed so much better than I ever thought he could. I don't see why that changes against Las Vegas. I'm going to say that Aaron Ekblad, man.
Someone you've asked your questions about. I get it.
Aaron Ekblad, like, can you be a like overwhelmingly positive impact player? He doesn't need to take over games. We've seen that Montour can do that, and their forward group and their goalie can. So he doesn't need to be God. He doesn't need to be Pronger on that Edmonton team. But can he, make a solid impact, stay out of bad plays, and handle those top line minutes, because he's going to see a ton of Eichel.
Yeah.
And that poses a lot of threat. Eichel's so fast. His vision and the way that he gets passes off. I think a lot of people that follow Las Vegas would like to see Eichel shoot the puck more, and I'm definitely I think he should shoot a hell of a lot more than he does. But he has a quick release on his passes. The angles of his passes. Like we talk about, like Austin Matthews, how some of the elite shooters kind of change the angle of their shot last minute that screws with goalies and is like that next tier of elite. Well, Eichel's that next tier of elite when it comes to doing that, distributing the puck. Yep. And it doesn't take much of a breakdown, as we saw in that Dallas series, for Eichel to find a guy, on the opposite side of the ice, tape to tape. It ends up in the back of your net. So I'd like to see Ekblad really step it up. I think he has a chance to be a big X factor.
He's a former. Was he first overall?
1-1.
He's a 1-1. He's the guy that kind of felt like at the time was the rebuild starter for Florida when they were at that time. But no, I think he's found himself in bad moments. He's found himself in good moments. I think you're spot on with that. He's got to clean it up. He's got to keep it careful. And if he can be a factor, not a
detriment,
not a detriment. This is it's an X factor for this series. I like that.
Is it time for predictions, boys? Team, games, Conn Smythe.
Teams, games, Conn Smythe. Rusty, you seem eager to go. You've been in the clubhouse going last lately, so why don't you lead us off here? Put the pressure on.
Las Vegas is a better team, and Florida has its flaws. Florida's been flawed all postseason. They have won on the margin so often. You're thinking to yourself, it's got to run out. It's got to run out. It's like a lot of these stats when you look at football games, and it's like, oh, well, turnover differential. That's usually heavily impacted by like a luck factor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, injuries as well.
Both teams have been really healthy, but Las Vegas is better. I think they are deeper. I think their defense is sound. I think they rely less on the heroics of their goalie. I think it's more of a team product. Florida in 6, Bobrovsky, Conn Smythe.
Got to keep them guessing always. Alex, do you want to go?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, this one has been tugging on me because like the realistic nature of this is I can pick either side and give you good logic for both sides. I agree, Vegas is better, and when I look at this on paper, I want to pick them, but the reality is I would prefer a Florida one, and I kind of like when I don't really have an edge, just picking the team I want to win. That's kind of my vibe. So I'm gonna go Florida. I'm going to go Tkachuk, Conn Smythe in 7. Tkachuk 2 winners, maybe not OT, but winning goals.
2 winners will get him to Conn Smythe.
Yep.
Sorry, 2 winners will get him to Conn Smythe. Even how good Bob's been, he's just had so many winners.
Vegas in 6. Eichel, Conn Smythe. You've seen it. They have eased Adin Hill into the most desirable situation possible. No pressure. They're keeping his shots to a minimum. They're protecting him. They've got the lockdown D. I think the clock strikes midnight on Florida. As much as I love to be on the vibes train, I've got Vegas in 6. Eichel, Conn Smythe winner. Vegas is going to be having a hell of a parade. That's my pick.
Yep.
Yeah, where would you even do a parade in Las Vegas? Just right down the strip.
Problem is
right down the strip.
Problem is
just do a lap down the strip.
They are building the F1 track for the race, so the strip is pretty shut down right now.
You should just go
Everything in front of the Bellagio.
Yeah, maybe. Oh my God! Oh my God!
The casino walk would be pretty legendary. Well,
They're just like pushing like rickshaws with the players on them.
Now I kind of want to see the Vegas one just to understand what that parade is.
Unreal. This series kicks off Saturday night in Vegas. TNT's got the broadcasting rights, thank the Lord, like we said. The boys will be given some live streams for sure. We'll get that schedule out, posted on the socials.
I don't want to say live streams for sure because we've promised and not delivered on
this
one.
We're doing.
But I think our live stream guaranteed to live stream deliver right now is about 0 for 20.
It is. It's a heavy fail. It's a heavy F.
Okay.
We're guaranteeing this one.
But no, this is happening. It's the final 7 potential.
Tell me
7
when and where,
games.
boys.
The final potential 7
I'll
games.
fit it into my jam-packed busy schedule.
But the season's dwindling. It's the final 2. It's a great year, and it's a great way to end the year. Send David versus Goliath in this situation. And I can't wait for more hockey as the final picks off on Saturday. Final thoughts before we close her out, boys.
You saying David and Goliath got me thinking. I just think Florida's gotten so much more attention than Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of a vibe around Las Vegas saying, "Hey guys, we're fucking here too." And guess what?
We're Goliath.
And guess what? We didn't fuck around all regular season either. We were the top team in our conference.
Maybe we're David.
Like we should be heavy favorites, and nobody's given us the respect. But hey, I mean, predictions, pick them and stick them. I mean, who knows? But going to be exciting, and looking forward to watching it all. And I think we're probably going to check in at the end of the series. I don't think we've got another scheduled pod.
We'll have one. I think we'll have one in
following Game 4.
If depending on how the series breaks out, if we've got something that's split about 2-2, we'll go Game 4. If not, if it's a little heavier, we'll either find it between Game 3 and Game 5. We'll see. I think Game 4 sounds like the number though. We will be back. I guarantee you we'll have one more podcast before the end of the year. Alex, closing thoughts.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's a really good matchup. A lot of fun players, a lot of fun team dynamics here. I love it. I will say I don't know what the odds are if he has long odds for Conn Smythe. Mark Stone. And I know I picked Florida, but I think Mark Stone is a sneaky, let's bag 5.
So, that's for the gamblers. I think there's some creative options on Las Vegas for who could be a Conn Smythe.
And on Florida.
Well, I think no.
It's Bob.
It's Bob or Kachuk.
Yeah,
Bennett.
I agree. Maybe
Bennett.
maybe
If Bennett has a heroic final, maybe. But if Bennett has a heroic final, it'll be Bob.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If Barkov has a heroic final, it'll be Bob.
Yeah.
Like if anybody has a heroic final and they win, it'll be Bob. Okay. Unless Bob sucks and gets yanked and Alex Lyon leads them to victory, which who knows. Yeah. But I think there's some good odds on some Vegas Conn Smythe guys. The one I like the most is I like Marchessault plus 6,500. So you wager $100, you win $650.
Yep.
So I think that's a good bet.
Yeah. Remember, gamble at your own responsibilities. We are not experts in our gambling, so make sure you do that responsibly.
Did you say 6,500?
No,
I said 6,500. I meant 650.
Okay,
yeah. I think, unless I got that
wrong. Because if it pays out 6,000, I may be. I'm probably on that.
I'm probably gonna touch it anyway. I'm getting buried. I'm probably not gonna gamble.
All right, you lovely termites. It's another fabulous episode. Another closing our first Stanley Cup preview. Hopefully many to come in the future. But if you want to go follow the boys, if you want to talk hockey, you want to talk Stanley Cup Finals, go follow the boys. Go follow Alex at armdog_SS. Follow Ross at Rusty Pedroia. Give me a follow at SiffyMan. And check out all the Star 6 media pages. We're on all of it, on firing on all cylinders, and we're excited. If you like this content, feel free to hit that like button. If you love it, hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, we'll catch you guys soon. We've got the live streams. They will be coming. A lot more coming. We're out. That's the final.